All right, so failed presidential candidate Kamala Harris is getting backlash over a possible playbook for the Democratic Party ahead of the midterm elections this November. She laid out her ideas on a Win with Black Women podcast, offering what some would consider some pretty radical proposals. Here's how she laid it out.
This is a moment where there are no bad ideas. A no bad idea brainstorm is what I'd like to call it. And in that no bad ideas brainstorm, we talk about what we need to do and think about doing around the Electoral College. We talk about the idea of Supreme Court reform, which includes expanding the Supreme Court. Let's talk about statehood for Puerto Rico and D.C.
So those aren't new ideas. Those ideas have been around for quite some time, and conservatives are slamming this playbook online, one critic calling it online staffer brain rot, another blasting Harris, no bad ideas, as just that, bad ideas, and another says that abolishing the Electoral College wouldn't have helped her win the presidency. She lost the popular vote as well. Just to remind everyone, Kamala Harris got 226 electoral votes. 226 to Donald Trump's 312. Kayleigh, let me start with you on this. You know, the Democrats obviously trying to figure out how to win.
Yeah.
And I'm just watching this sort of rewind here of this playbook and these ideas, which really strike me as I'm thinking to myself, so if you change Electoral College, you add, you know, those seats in Washington, D.C., Puerto Rico, just to name a few, Supreme Court, none of these are ideas that do anything for people, for voters. They're all process politics kind of ideas.
They're naked political calculations. And I wish Republicans, this is going to be, I guess, newsflash, would be a little more like Kamala Harris. And I say that because I wish they would have a no bad ideas brainstorm session, because right now, they have a lot of bad ideas. They're sitting there watching Kamala Harris say, I'm going to eliminate the filibuster. In order to do what she wants, she would have to do that. Pack the Supreme Court, D.C., Puerto Rico states. Guess who said that last week? AOC said that last week. There are no more newsflash Republicans, Kirsten Sinema's to stop Democrats from nuking the filibuster. Newsflash, there are no more moderate Democrats outside of John Fetterman to stop them. There's no more Joe Manchins. Every single senator, in my mind, that is a Democrat, will put into place and mechanize exactly what she is saying. James Carville has told me to my face. So, yes, it is a naked political calculation, but it's time for Republicans to have some naked political calculations, because when the shoe's on the other foot, and mark my words, it will be, they will do each and every one of those things.
Do you think they should eliminate the filibuster now?
Absolutely.
Republicans?
Absolutely. They should follow Mike Lee, Ron Johnson, Rick Scott, some of the strongest voices out there saying, they're going to do this. We should do this now. And the president, I would add.
Carly, what do you think?
Well, I think it would be a very bad idea for Democrats and even for Kamala Harris herself to run for president again. And it's a real possibility. She did an event with Al Sharpton last month, and he asked her directly, and her response was, listen, I might. And now she's on a podcast talking about brainstorming ahead of the midterm election. So it looks like that's what it's shaping up to be. And, you know, you get into the bad ideas of what she's talking about, no bad ideas. It is a good idea for everybody to have these conversations. I think no bad ideas for when it comes to Democrats are ones that really meet people in the middle. I mean, you think about what lost them the election last year. It had a lot to do with that ad that Kamala Harris was the target of, where she's for they, them, Donald Trump is for I. They're not doing that. I think the rise of the Democratic Socialist movement is a very real thing in this country right now. So I don't think that those meet in the middle good ideas are going to happen anytime soon.
Jeremy, what do you think?
Yeah, well, to your first point, you know, you would think that if you're Kamala Harris, you lost this election in kind of an embarrassing way. Key parts of your coalition have now gone to the opposite party. You'd think there would be some more introspection. You know, you think she would be kind of talking about, you know, what are ways that we could win back the trust of the American people? What are some policies that we could put forward that would help, increase the quality of life for Americans? But no. Their whole idea brainstorm is about how do we rig the system to make sure that we can win and we never lose another election. Like, how do we make sure that we get rid of the Electoral College, which, as you pointed out, would not actually help her anyway. But, you know, get rid of the Electoral College. How do we could pack the Supreme Court? Let's add in new states. I mean, all of these ideas, as you said, are processes not actually geared towards policies that help Americans. And you notice that a lot of the rhetoric coming out of the left, you don't see actual well thought out, policy prescriptions. You get more of these kind of very aggressive process oriented ideas to rig the system so to make sure that they never lose another election.
I'm watching Emily, her speaking into the camera. It's very static. It's sort of the exact same kind of thing we saw when she ran for president last time. And we're hearing more people say they think she might be the nominee next time around. Obviously, a long way to go before that. But do you think the Democrats will sort of do, what I might call a Hillary Clinton again and like rerun a bad candidate all over again because they don't have a better person out there?
Gosh, well, that would be great news for us. I think they might. I'll say this. They are clearly playing the same play, which is trying to change the rules. This is their response to losing also. And remember, we saw in that Spain global summit when leaders of the Democrat Party went over there, many governors and stuff, including Walz, and they kept talking about how do we fight the Republicans? How do we resist this administration? They never talked about how do we earn votes? Yes. When she says now she's calling for more ideas, there's no bad ideas. First of all, the biggest bad idea ever was the Democrat Party not giving their voters a choice whatsoever and just installing her as the presidential candidate. And secondly, they didn't listen to any ideas during that campaign because many voices in her party were clamoring to be heard, including a lot in rural areas that they blatantly ignored. And when you look at the campaign trail that she went on and that they invested in, it was very urban. They felt they had things on lock. They assumed they had certain votes, and that is always what the Democrat Party does. So now that she's calling for good ideas, if I were in her party, I would be sort of offended. Like, where were you when I was trying to be heard a while ago? But she can go ahead and do this. I also think that's the biggest indicator that you are out of ideas is if you're saying yes. Hey, what do you guys think? I mean, this is the party that was paying influencers millions of dollars to just show up at the White House under the Biden administration and tweet something out. So look, everything they do is stale because everything they do is not based on serving the public or having policies that work that actually care about people. It is always about simply scoring or currying or stealing votes.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.